Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Josh Kelly versus Bakhram Murtazaliev fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. This, like many other videos at the moment, has been requested by somebody on the Patreon, so if you're wanting to get an early released video like this is out a good couple of weeks before the actual fight happens. And again, if you want to join the Patreon to request any kind of videos, use code Axel72 throughout the whole of January and you'll get 75% off. And if you're wanting to use the Patreon, you can also use it for betting tips or to just have chats with general people who are like-minded in the boxing community. Also, if you're wanting to get into, your New Year's resolutions, but maybe you're already kind of settled into them and you're wanting some new active wear to keep kind of feeling fresh, if you use code AXEL10 at grindactivekinetics.com, you'll get 10% off any order. And again, links for both of them will be in the description. Thank you very much. Let's get straight into this one now. And I mean, Josh Kelly has had quite an interesting career, and to see him now get a world title shot, I mean, I'm happy for him. Of course I'm happy for him. I'm a British boxing fan, it's great to see. And I mean, if he's able to go out there and get the win against Murtazaliev, it could be the kind of year of British boxing champions. I mean, with what Dalton Smith did against Matthias, it could be a real kind of turning point, and all British boxers might go out there and start winning world titles this year, and I'd be all for that. But I mean, I think he's had an interesting career, one in which I'm kind of surprised to see has been able to get him ranked in such a good spot with the WBO and the IBF. I mean, the IBF don't have a specific number one mandatory, so I think Murtazaliev, I think he's been told to fight by the IBF due to the fact that he hasn't fought in ages, but Kelly isn't a number one mandatory. I think he's still ranked third, but there's just nobody really else ahead of him. But I think he is actually ranked number one with the WBO, but of course Zayas has gone on to try and fight Barryu instead. And I mean, just to get himself that kind of world championship position, and also to get a champion who is willing to come to fight in his kind of home city, is really kind of, like I say, surprising and interesting. And for Kelly, it's kind of all gone in his favour. I mean, I think every challenger dreams of winning a world title in their home city, and I think it's also great for boxing to see that there's a world title fight in this area again of the UK. I mean, I think it's been a while since we've had really much boxing in the area of kind of the northeast, and there's always been quite a few names and quite a big fan base and quite a big following of any fighter that fights there, but not really many of them have been able to get up to that high level as of recent. So again, for Kelly, this is the perfect kind of opportunity to get a big world title fight, but I think it is, of course, still a very tough fight. And I feel like a lot of Kelly's career has been fighting opponents with good records, but them not actually being as good as it looks like. I mean, last time out he KO'd a 24-1 fighter in Flavius Bia in round one, and I mean, it was a very easy beating, like is often the case with a lot of opponents that kind of fight a main event on Wasserman shows, especially with, the likes of Josh Kelly's. I mean, they've done it with Harlem Eubank, they did it with Lyndon Arthur a few times as well. They can get good opponents who are from, abroad and have good records on paper, but they're really not that good, and it's just makes often quite boring fights. And that's happened quite a lot with Wasserman, and I think they've done that with quite a few of Kelly's fights. I mean, he's got some good names on his resume, but they are kind of, on paper, at the time, kind of British level opposition. I mean, he beat Troy Williamson, which, I mean, kind of went on a bit of a downwards run after fighting Kelly and kind of got stopped he got stopped, I think, once, but then also, lost on a couple of occasions, and then now has moved up into the super welterweight division and knocked out Callum Simpson, so he's actually doing really well for himself. But I mean, at that time he was undefeated still, and he was riding at a bit of a high, and that was a good win for a British title. And then he also has fought Ishmael Davis, who was also undefeated at the time, came in on short notice, and I mean, it went to what was kind of supposed a kind of close fight, but it wasn't really a close fight. I mean, I had Josh Kelly winning pretty much all the rounds, bar maybe the final two or three, where the fight became a little bit close when Davis started to turn it on a bit more. But to still, have, I suppose, them final few rounds the way that it went with Davis coming on short notice, again, interesting. Obviously, he was meant to have fought Liam Smith, and that would have been a bigger name on his resume for Kelly. And that would have, in my opinion, made sense to then propel him onto a world title. But I just feel like the names in which he actually has and the wins in which he has, yes, they can look good on paper, but they don't actually feel like they are kind of that world level. And I feel like he's never actually taken a world level type of fight other than when he lost to David Avanesian badly. I mean, obviously, he was winning that fight, he was boxing quite well, but then the tide started to kind of turn and things started to go wrong for him, and he just kind of started to slow down. And after Avanesian actually was rocked in one of the rounds earlier, things changed, and then Avanesian managed to get kind of a beating on Kelly in the end. And I think it's just going to be interesting to see how he's going to be able to take punches at a world level. Again, like I say, since Avanesian not going so well, and I feel like Murtazaliev, he could be better than Avanesian. Again, I'm not entirely sold on Murtazaliev just yet, but he could be better than Avanesian. And obviously that was a while ago. I mean, Kelly's been on a good win streak since, and I'm interested to see how he does, but I think the division's quite stacked at the moment with some good names around in the super welterweight division. So, like I say, to just see him being such a good position with the rankings and to be able to get this title shot over some other guys, again, it's fortunate for him, but I suppose, he has got a couple of good wins on his resume and he's fought on quite big cards and things like that. So I suppose maybe that can push him up the rankings a little bit more. It's also surprising and unexpected to see him going back to fighting with Eddie Hearn. I mean, Eddie Hearn didn't really do any kind of major announcement or anything. The fact that he, had managed to get Josh Kelly on, back on a contract, you would think that would be a big thing, a potential kind of world title fight. Obviously, this is a big, main event show, but I thought they would have maybe promoted it or pushed it a little bit more. But the fact that Kelly's been a main event with Wasserman for quite a while since his loss against Avanesian, to see him, like I say, just kind of go away from them as soon as kind of a big fight happens again, it's interesting. And I'm sure Eddie Hearn's going to push the fight well when it's actually fight week, but I just think it's a little bit strange to see that he went straight back to Eddie Hearn. For Murtazaliev, I mean, to be fair, when Murtazaliev got his title shot against Jack Kulke for the vacant title, I mean, I was kind of looking at both Murtazaliev's and Kulke's resume and heavily judging both of them because I don't feel like either of their resumes really made for a world title fight either. So I guess, they were both in that same kind of position, and Murtazaliev has kind of shown how he was deserving of a title shot and that he, is a good fighter and that you can't judge him. And I mean, a lot of people were still calling him a bum and everything like that before Tim Tszyu faced him, but then he went out there and obviously destroyed Tim Tszyu. That was after Tim Tszyu had a war with Fundora, and Fundora, is seen to be, at the moment, one of the best, if not the best, super welterweight champion around. I mean, if you look at, obviously, the division which is stacked, you have the likes of a Virgil Ortiz, you have the likes of a Jaron Ennis, you have the likes of an Xander Zayas, and none of these guys have been proven champions. I mean, two of them aren't even champions. One of them, isn't proven champion in the super welterweight division just yet. So you would have to say, from what Fundora's been able to do as a super welterweight champion, he probably is the best one around at the moment. And so for Murtazaliev to do that to Tim Tszyu, it is pretty crazy and pretty impressive, to be fair. And like I mentioned, really made a name for himself as quite a powerful, punching, quite scary as well, champion who will, I believe, fight anyone. And I think that is the case. Obviously, though, the Tim Tszyu fight was over a year ago now, so maybe it's not the case. I mean, I don't know if he's just not had any kind of matchups available. Like I said, the IBF rankings have been a bit weird. The other champions in and around the super welterweight division have been either moving on, like Terence Crawford, or there's been rumours of other fights. Fundora's been linked with plenty of fights. He's had a couple of fights of his own, and then you have the likes of Ennis moving up recently. That fight with Ortiz being talked about, so they're not really talking about Murtazaliev. Like I say, Xander Zayas getting a title shot and then trying to go for Barryu getting elevated because Crawford moved on. It's really been, like I say, a lot going on in the division, but nobody kind of really thinking or actually pushing to fight Murtazaliev. So I feel like maybe he has just been waiting around due to no fault of his own, just due to the fact that then nobody has been really kind of thinking about trying to fight him, even though, like I say, of course, he is a champion. And of course, the only guy now kind of considering fighting him is Josh Kelly. And to speak about both fighters individually, though, I mean, Josh Kelly as a fighter, he's typically known for having fast hands. He's, I think, starting to hold his feet a little bit more and a little bit better. I mean, he did that in the Bia fight, and of course that led to him getting a knockout. I don't actually think I would like to see him do that in this fight, to be fair, but I think he showed a little bit more, in his arsenal doing that in this fight, even though perhaps he was a little bit more tighter and tenser when he was trying to be that bit more aggressive of a fighter. He's got strong hooks to the body, he's got solid footwork, and to be fair, his footwork is really good, to be fair, and he has a willingness to kind of circle off well. He's got good combinations. He's pretty sharp in his movement. He walks onto shots very well. I mean, throughout the majority of the Troy Williamson fight, he was pretty much just walking in onto shots continuously. He pivots off well. He's got good head movement as well, and he does, often rely on that. And he is best when he's in that kind of fluid, relaxed mindset where he's able to be, slipping in his punches, then kind of circling off and moving off. He is able to slip and then come back with straight shots, which is something in which I would say his best kind of attribute, the way that he can slip a shot and then just respond back with a 1-2 when the opponent is out of position, and often leaving himself quite vulnerably open on the inside. And he keeps his movement consistent as well. I mean, again, the Troy Williamson fight, there's been multiple fights of his. The Ishmael Davis fight, he was able to keep his movement going throughout all the 12 rounds. Obviously, later on in the Davis fight, things got a little bit more tough for him, and he did kind of get thrown around a little bit more, and he was struggling a bit more, but he was still trying to keep his movement going, and I don't think his movement slowed down due to tiredness. I think Davis just managed to get to him a bit more. Same with what happened with the Avanesian fight as well. Negatives about him, I think he can lean back when he's moving a bit, which can lead to his chin being vulnerable a little bit at times. If he misses his punches, I think he can become a little bit unsure, like in that Williamson fight. If he did miss that kind of single shot that he was throwing, he wasn't really kind of following up on it that well. He can be made to smother a lot, and that's again if he misses any of his work, or if he's trying to be the aggressor, he can be smothered. He has his hands low a lot. He hardly ever kind of keeps his hands actually that high. He can be too relaxed when he's trying to work and throw. He can't deal with fighting in the pocket, kind of taking punches too well, and I think that's what Davis was kind of getting to later on in their fight. He was able to get the fight in the pocket and started to work well to the body and actually grind down on Kelly a little bit. I think the gaps are there then if you can get in the pocket with Kelly. It's just if Kelly will, allow you to get in close for a prolonged period of time with him. He can resort to kind of being on the run a little bit at times, and I think his technique of his hooks and his uppercuts aren't always the best. The hooks can be a little bit kind of armish and slappy at times, and the uppercut, he can, because he is throwing it quite low, he isn't really putting his kind of shoulder into it. He can kind of sometimes lead up, and then if he misses, it just kind of comes in with the elbow a little bit at times as well. And, it's not always the nicest. And if he is relying on that kind of single shot on the back foot, you kind of have to bank upon it landing with effect. And I don't think naturally he is as powerful as that of Murtazaliev. But again, he probably could hurt Murtazaliev. And I mean, Murtazaliev, I think he's got heart, but I don't think anybody's actually tested his chin properly yet. I mean, Zoo's a powerful puncher, but because the fight didn't really go on for very long before Zoo started getting really hurt, I don't really think that Zoo was able to land much with effect. So I don't think that Murtazaliev's chin's been tested too much just yet. But again, I don't know if Kelly is going to be that guy to really test his chin. Murtazaliev, as a fighter though, I mean, he's got a real good chopping shortened hook, which of course he was able to land on multiple occasions on Zoo. I mean, pretty much every time he threw it, it looked like it had tremendous amount of damage that it was causing to Zoo, and it's a really nice shot, and he carries, in my opinion, more power. He's got good punch selection as well. For the most part, he's probably the more natural at being the aggressor, in my opinion. I think he will be the more come forward type of fighter who probably will have that bit more of an output. So again, I don't think a Kelly who's going to be standing toe to toe would work out well for him in this fight. I think if he is moving, he should be moving around, and he can use his lateral movement and his head movement in this fight. But I also feel like he can't just be, there with his hands low, because I think Murtazaliev will punish that in this fight. He's a good fight finisher, I believe, Murtazaliev, and if you stay in range too long, I think he will punish you. So, I mean, he's done that to a fighter like Tim Tszyu, who has basically just stood in front of him, but will he be able to do that to Josh Kelly? Again, we will see. I actually believe throws going backwards pretty well as well. There was a couple of times in which Tszyu was actually trying to put the pressure on and put him backwards, and same with the Cool K fight as well, and he was throwing going backwards pretty well as well. But I mean, to be fair, that Cool K fight, until he managed to get the big kind of knockout, the fight was pretty close, and very close actually. And so again, you look at the Tszyu fight and you think that was a really good performance, and it was, but you look at the Cool K fight and you think that wasn't really a great performance for a world champion. And again, it's interesting, but I still think, like I say, he can throw going backwards well. I don't think he throws on the back foot that well. I think he'll just stay on the ropes and cover up a little bit or just wait. But he can, throw whilst getting pushed backwards, if that makes sense, or taking a backwards step. He can spring off his back foot with a good straight, in which was able to punish Tszyu for, I believe, the second knockdown. He lands a lot of punches around the guard, which can really discombobulate you and can cause a lot of damage, and that might be able to surprise Josh Kelly in this fight. He also typically has a high output as well. Negatives about him: he's not got as fast a hands, and in general, he's not got as sharp reactions. He's not that quick compared to Kelly. He can forget to defend when throwing, and he can be just walking forwards a bit at times as well when he's just throwing and walking forwards. He stands quite tall. He doesn't use much head movement. He can kind of fall or stumble backwards under pressure. Like I say, he can then throw whilst in them bad positions, but I still think because he is squaring up quite a lot, he is kind of stumbling backwards a bit at times. He does have gaps in his guard. He has his hands typically quite high, but he does, still leave gaps. He's willing to sit on the ropes and not have the best of kind of covering up defense. Again, his hands are a bit more higher than that of Kelly, but because Kelly normally just has them by his side, but they're still not overly that high, and they do drop. And like I say, if he's just sitting on the ropes, he's not really covering up or defensively being that smart. So if Kelly can back him up at any point with a nicely timed shot, then he might be able to finish the fight through that. If you can deal with his power, he definitely would be there to be countered, in my opinion. He also, I believe, can have quite negative body language as well. In that Cool K fight, I think when the fight wasn't really going his way before he managed to get the kind of big knockout, his body language did look very poor. And of course, with it being in Kelly's home country, if it's really poor, body language, even if he's looking okay in certain rounds, they might just give him, not give him the round because of how bad his body language looks, where he's just kind of slumping forwards and just looking a bit sorry for himself, even if he isn't feeling that way. And he's not actually always that good at actually pushing you off. He's quite a big guy. I mean, he's not going to be too much taller than Kelly, but he was quite significantly taller than that of Tszyu. He's got a good reach, but he just doesn't really use it to actually push you off all too well. But who do I think is going to win? I think that Bakhram Murtazaliev is going to be able to win. I think he's going to cause the kind of shock to the hometown hero in beating him actually via a stoppage. I think it's going to be quite damaging. Of course, Kelly's been stopped in the past as well. I think Kelly's going to be trying to box and move and maybe having bits of success, but I think Murtazaliev is going to keep coming forwards, keep chopping away. And I think that Kelly, again, I don't think his power is going to be enough to hurt Murtazaliev unless, Murtazaliev's got some chin that we don't know is actually really bad because it hasn't been tested. But I think there'll be a moment in which Murtazaliev is able to catch Kelly, whether that be to a nice body shot or whether that be to a nice short check hook, and it could actually, give Kelly a moment of like, whoa, okay, that actually damages him, and that could be in one of the earlier rounds, and then, he could go on his bike a bit more, he could be, made to be followed a bit, and I think eventually he's just going to get chopped down and hurt and damaged, and then eventually stopped in that 7th or 8th kind of round, possibly a bit later, but I still think that Murtazaliev is going to be able to win. If Josh Kelly wins, then again, I think I'm probably just going to start rooting for the British guy throughout the rest of 2026, to be fair, because that would be two kind of big, in my opinion, upsets for British contenders fighting for world titles. But yeah, like I say, for the moment, I still believe that Murtazaliev's going to win. Then who we can go on to fight next? I mean, again, there is a lot of real good names in the super welterweight division, but in the actual IBF rankings, it's not the best. I mean, Brandon Adams is there. He's meant to be fighting Keeman Ajarko. At least that's what I was hearing, but that might not be happening anymore. I don't know. Um, I mean, I wouldn't mind Adams versus Murtazaliev, but I mean, he got a good win against Boachuk, but then he did lose beforehand against Katsarakis. I wouldn't mind Katsarakis against Murtazaliev, but I don't even think he's ranked with the IBF. And then, I'd love matchups like a Ortiz or a Ennis or, a Xander Zayas, if he beats Barriou, I think that would be, already done, that fight, by the time that this one happens. But again, I'm pre-recording this, so that hasn't happened yet. Same with the Walsh versus Campo one. That's not happened yet. So again, I don't know what's happened with that. I'd assume that Walsh would win, but also at the same time, I don't know what's happening with Zuffa Boxing, if they're gonna, actually try and go for the belt, or they're gonna go and try and do their own thing. But it wouldn't surprise me if Murtazaliev actually goes and joins Zuffa Boxing. I mean, I don't think Murtazaliev's got any kind of major promotion, so that could be an easy, thing for him to do to get some good money. Or, a Fundora versus a Furman, the winner of that, if they do remake it, but then it means that Murtazaliev will be sat around for a while. So it's difficult, but, there is matchups and there is fights and there is names there, but I just don't know what or when these fights would actually happen. But of course, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.